Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks on Wednesday, the 14th day of February, Valentine's Day, year of our Lord 2018. Preparative of the day, I want to encourage all of you to make sure each one of your team members has a mechanical wristwatch. They're called self-winders. They're called mechanical, no battery. EMP won't affect it. Get a good quality one. It will last for decades. There's a few selections there at my website, ranging from a very low price up to the Rolexes. At my website, thelibertyman.com, under John Survival and Tactical Gear. We're doing every morning, beginning this week, the breaking news story, which today the breaking news is at Fort Meade, Maryland. One of the entrances, a black SUV attempted to crash through the entrance. It was shot by the security guards. They got a person in custody. A black SUV is all shot up from attempting to breach the perimeter of Fort Meade, Maryland, with the headquarters. Always was the headquarters, may or not be, but NSA has a lot of equipment there and people working, National Security Agency. That's all we've got. It's breaking news. We have a patient waiting in the green room, my friend, Professor James McCanney. Professor McCanney is a credentialed astrophysicist. He's taught astrophysics at Cornell University. He's taught mathematics at Cornell University. Jim's an amateur archaeologist, prolific author, having written 10 books with more on the way, and radio talk show host. Good morning, Jim.
Morning, John. How are you today?
Really good, sir. Looking forward to the end of winter. It'll be March in 2 weeks, and I'm ready. How about yourself?
Well, no comment. I don't like or deal with winter anymore. Let me just make a brief comment.
Well, having lived in Minnesota a big chunk of your life, people up there make fun of what we call winter down here in south central Missouri, don't they?
Oh yeah, it's I won't make any jokes on the air.
Okay, all right, yeah, that's fine.
Because it's severe wherever you are. It's cold because the reason is the houses in Minnesota are built for severe weather. You know, they have the biggest swing of temperature. It can get up to 105 and down to 60 below. So in the whole world, Minnesota has the biggest swing of temperature. You know, other places can be cold, but they don't have that possibility of a high temperature in the summer, and just where it's physically located. But right, there's a fun fact about Minnesota. If you took a cardboard sheet and cut out the shape of North America on it and balanced it on a pin, it would balance right in the middle of Minnesota. But it has two international seaports. The St. Lawrence Seaway goes out to the Atlantic, and the Mississippi River that starts there goes down to New Orleans and out to the ocean. So it has two international seaports. And it gets all of its oil from Canada. It doesn't depend on international oil. So I've always maintained that Minnesota should be an independent country. Be the easiest one to convert over, and it's food independent. It's energy independent. And also it produces probably one of the biggest producer of biofuels, including biodiesel. So anyway, it's a few fun facts there.
Interesting. Well, it is an interesting state. I've been there a couple of times for events sponsored by AMSOIL. And what was that little town there next to the lake where we had that convention? But the city fathers were very creative. They took over, confiscated the second floor of all the street, just the front 10 feet or so, 12 feet, 15 feet of every storefront on Main Street there, and made a walkway where you can, with connecting bridges between when you cross streets, so you could park in a parking garage, and once you got in there, you gain entrance to this walkway and literally go through the entire downtown area of this community and never set foot outside.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that's common in that, of course, if people have a lunch break, then they can walk around, and the next step would be to dome it all over, just put glass between the buildings, and it would conserve a tremendous amount of heat because you wouldn't have all that wall space on the between the buildings. And so you could basically heat it for almost nothing. Your heat bill would go way down over the years, and then you'd have, basically a greenhouse and all of that cement to hold the heat. It would be, that's the perfect scenario.
Right, and of course, then there'd be no motor vehicles going on the roads. That would be an issue to deal with, to say the least.
Yeah.
Well, moving on from there, Jim. What things are you paying attention to today, sir?
Well, on this day in 1990. Oh, by the way, I was going to comment about your comment about watches, mechanical watches.
Yes, sir.
They can be magnetized. Some of the steel that's in the watches, and I've had this happen, and it throws the time off, and it changes the ability of the watch, and it has to be demagnetized to get back to normal. So,
I never considered that. I've never had that. I wear a Rolex myself. I've never had it near a strong magnet that I'm aware of. But that's good news to know that, so you know how to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, I had experience because there again in Minnesota as a kid, we had the Iron Range, which was the biggest magnetic thing on Earth. It was just iron, and of course it's magnetic. So if you were in that area, compasses and watches didn't work. So interesting. Another little fun fact.
It is.
But on this day in 1990, the Voyager spacecraft, Voyager 1, it left the solar system, and it turned back, and it took a picture of our solar system. And what it found, of course, were stars out there, and our own sun looked like a star. But it found a basically dust cloud. And I've always maintained, you remember the hoopla of the microwave background radiation, which is a microwave noise that's visible when you look out amongst the stars, and it's all in all directions. And what I've maintained is that all we're seeing there is this cloud. It's like a donut-shaped cloud, and that's part of the capacitor. When comets discharge the capacitor, that's the positive pole of the capacitor out there, and that's what they're measuring with the microwave background radiation. So until you get outside of that, you will not really read it once you get outside of that, you're not going to see a microwave background radiation. So this whole hoopla that they're seeing the beginning of time is just bad science. More bad science.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of that bad science going on, isn't there?
Yeah. So you walk into it, astrophysics and astronomy, it's bad science is the word of the day. Yeah. Bad science and bad scientists, because they got their nose in the air and their head up there, something, excuse me the expression, but and they live in an Ivy League school or a university or whatever, or Goddard Space Flight Center or JPL, and the rest of the world doesn't exist.
I was going to say, let's not leave out anybody there, Jim.
So,
I'm very positive about what's going on at the national level with these memorandums that have been released, especially the one a week ago, Monday, the U.S. Senate released. It looks like we may get some bona fide, genuine investigations of the real Russian collusion, which was between Hillary Clinton and the Democratic National Committee and the Russians, not between Donald Trump and the Russians.
I quick popped up CNN before the show, which I always do to see what kind of baloney they're trying to push. And it's just going on and on. And, this probe, if there was something, they would have found it long ago. This probe is just dragging on. It'd be like dragging your grandma in to try and find a sin she committed when she was a child.
Right.
That's the level that this is at. It just
I understand this better than most, since I've been conducting investigations myself since 1973, and if somebody with the skills that I've got, with the power of subpoena, can get to the heart of the matter, I say no more than 4 to 6 weeks at the most. Once you've got the power of subpoena and the investigative skills necessary, the full resources of the FBI, Department of Justice, of course you can get to the heart of the matter very quickly. If there is a heart of the matter, which in this case there's not. Yeah,
it's just it's grabbing, wisping at the air in the night with like an open net with no net in it.
Right. A net frame with no net. Got it.
So, but no, the real issue is very clear, and the whole issue of the cheating of the voting, I was just talking with somebody about that last night. The 17 million plus cheated votes that Hillary got. I mean, it was in 10 centers, 10 voting centers. It was Los Angeles, right. Las Vegas, I got Denver, Chicago. Chicago was one of the bigger ones. Portland, Minneapolis, New York, and something up in Maine, I believe. And then, of course, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan.
Let's not forget, Jim, we had the President of the United States publicly stating that there'd be no consequences for illegal aliens voting before that election. How bizarre and strange is that?
Yeah. Well, the whole thing was they thought they were going to win, and they didn't. So now and then the investigation is all the gnashing of teeth that they're still trying to do something. And every day that Trump is president and moves on with his agenda, they just can't stand it. Little Adam Schiff and Schiffy Schiff and the whole entourage of Pelosi and these people that are just, oh my goodness. Those are the kind of kids that in grade school would have had a different attitude real quick where I came from.
Right.
Because they would realize that kind of, mealy mouse behavior doesn't fly. Those are the people that learned from the time they were little how to manipulate, how to lie, how to twist, how to do whatever it was. And that's, the case. These people grew up privileged and, became privileged at a certain point and just think they can make up the truth. And that goes for scientists, too. The people who just, if they say it, it must be true.
Right. And they spend so much of their life and their time in this sheltered environment where they get used to getting their way, and they expect that to hold true once they leave that sheltered environment, don't they?
Exactly. Yeah, we see people like this all the time, but unfortunately, the worst ones gravitate towards government because that's where they can squirm and weasel the most. And a lot of it is in their head, too. Like Trump hit it right on the head. He says, little Adam Schiff wants to be run for higher office. Well, so he's squirming and weaseling his way into it instead of doing something real. Instead of actually creating legislation and trying to do something, he's mealy mouse weaseling around in the background trying to, create friction instead of doing something positive.
Well, these academics, I don't know what's going to take to change it, if it ever can be changed. You want to move on from there, Jim, on to the next topic?
Sure. Just a mention of the wing generator. That's ongoing. People can see the video on my webpage, and that's kind of stands as what's going on. So it's really interesting and a lot going on in the background. So, people can be part of it in a number of ways. It's all described there. And we're still taking names of people, creating lists of people who would be interested if they have a farm or a ranch in a location where they have good wind. And that's one of the big target markets.
Right.
So people can write in and request to be put on the list, and then we'll contact them regarding, future. We'll examine who has the best situation to begin with. But there are so many applications that we have to really take them kind of in order at this point.
Well, if you want to be on the list, go through Jim's website and get on the list, right, Jim?
That's right. Yeah, and a lot of people are doing that.
Well, that's great. That's great. I encourage people to do that. And unfortunately, where I am, the wind here is not suitable for any kind of wind-driven devices. These hills just are not suitable for that kind of installation. But there's in Missouri, north of the Missouri River, is where it's windy pretty much 24/7, 365. And many parts out west, it's windy a lot, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's the thing is it's not appropriate for. In fact, I didn't want to really be in the smaller market. It's okay, but where this really shines is on the big systems from, say, 5 megawatts and larger, where you can develop real power and power clusters of homes or little towns or whole cities.
Right. Hold that thought, Jim. We got a break. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. Thank you. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back here. We're here on Wednesday, the 14th of February. If you're planning on attending the event in Dallas, where I'm the keynote speaker, the Hear the Watchman event in Dallas, let's click on that banner on my website, get $20 off the ticket. If you can't go, the same banner will give you 20% off the live stream cost. So check that out. We're visiting Professor James McCanney. His website is linked to my links page at thelibertyman.com. Jim, you've got 2 radio shows a week. Tell people how they can listen live and to the archives, if you would, please, sir.
Yeah, every Thursday evening, 6 p.m. Central Time, WWCR, shortwave, Nashville, Tennessee, and the James McCanney Science Hour at the Crossroads, a commercial-free show where I discuss current events and recent scientific achievements and difficulties. Then I have my paid cast, which is $3.95 a month for an extra hour of deep dive into scientific topics that cover a broad spectrum. I'm now going through a series of shows dealing with the 10 biggest problems in the world, which are, let me see if I can find these, energy, water, population, food, environment, poverty, terrorism and war, disease, education, and topics like that. So that's the current topic, set of topics in the paid cast. In each one I take a different analysis from what you might normally think of on these topics. So all of that on my webpage, how to listen to the radio shows, etc.
All right. Got an update here at the Fort Meade incident. Sounds like President Trump has been briefed on the incident at one of the gates of Fort Meade where a black SUV ran into a concrete barrier, was shot up, and one man taken into custody. So hopefully we'll know more about that as the day proceeds.
Well, black SUV, John, that sounds like a government issue.
Well, there's... we don't know yet. All we know is they got a photograph of looks like a thin person. You can't even tell if it's a man or a woman, wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt, being handcuffed. Can't even tell the race or the sex of the person. But he or she is in custody, and the black SUV has at least 3 bullet holes in the windshield, and a big dent where it hit the concrete barrier with the right front bumper of this black SUV. Yeah,
even SUVs don't fare well against, reinforced concrete in front of government buildings.
No, not at all. I'm glad they're there. So I don't want to prognosticate on this or speculate. Hopefully we'll get some details later in the day as to who this person is and hopefully what their motive was. Okay. Well, Jim, any updates on things going on in space, sir?
Yeah. I just wanted to we were talking about the wing generator before the break. Right, I just wanted to add, I have an expression that I've coined. It's bringing us into the jet age of wind energy. And if, John, you may remember prop planes used for public transportation, and like TWA.
Right.
They had 4 engines with propellers,
right.
And they'd fly at about 20,000 feet, and there were 10 businessmen smoking cigars on them, and it was,
right.
It was like subjecting yourself to torture, some kind of torture. And then we went into the jet age. Then we were able to get up higher. They got good air cleaning systems in the jets, etc. So that they could go, instead of 300 miles an hour, they went 600 miles an hour, and they got you there in a number of hours instead of half a day, and you didn't have to stop for refueling. Oh, the list goes on. Right. So anyway, I'm bringing the world into the jet age of wind energy.
Okay. All right. That's good.
A way of looking at what the wing does.
Right. Well, I know people have been looking forward to where they can write a check and get a wing generator delivered and set up at their place so they can have electricity at their home, or maybe for 2 or 3 homes if it's a big enough one. I think there's a market for both, Jim, for the smaller ones for ranches and farms, which are very remote and don't have electricity otherwise, as well as the really large ones that you seem to like, where you can have electricity for a small community or even a big community. So good.
Great. And then another thing that's happening in the background, which is just coincidental, it's serendipity happening at the same time. There's an effort to find sources of energy, and people would buy them through like Bitcoin or Chainlink. Was it
Blockchain?
Blockchain, yeah.
Right.
So it's perfect timing.
Okay. Well, with that, we'll hold that thought. We got a break. Call number is 800-313-9443.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 14th of February. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. We have our first image of the year, image of North America with new coastlines from a TV show this time, a TV show that was broadcast in 1959, one of the episodes of Sea Hunt, starring Lloyd Bridges, one of my favorite shows when I was a boy. I always liked those close-ups of Lloyd with his mask on underwater and the expressions he would get on his face. It was always very exciting. If you find an image of North America, of any continent with new coastline in a movie or TV show, get that screen capture to me. You get your choice of any of my 5 DVDs as a thank you. It's a fun project. I expect we'll double or more of the number of images this calendar year 2018. Also, at my website, of course, are energy cleaners for sale. This is my home business. I use mine every night. It's a marvelous healing device. If you've got issues with arthritis pain, everybody gets relief with arthritis pain. Joint pain, same thing. Back pain, you'll get pain relief. The energy cleaner is a healing device. That's what it is. Not getting a great night's sleep, tired of taking prescription meds to sleep? Get yourself an energy cleaner. Only $285, shipping included. Keep in mind I offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's what I do from me to you personally. The factory-made fitted mattress pads, it's a great combination. Most people these days are getting their factory-made fitted mattress pad with their energy cleaner right at the get-go, and they're very happy that they do. I take PayPal, MasterCard, Visa. You can send me a check if you need to. My address is at my website. And I got a toll-free hour line 24 hours a day. Here it is, 800-592-9543. That's again 800-592-9543. Visiting with Professor James McCanny, his website's linked to my links page at thelibertyman.com. And we have a toll-free hour call-in number if you want to call us. You have a question or comment for Professor McCanny, 800-313-9443. Let's continue, Jim.
John, talking about when we were kids in TV shows, there was this show, Rocky and Bullwinkle. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And they had on there Mr. Peabody's Improbable Science. And it was always a comical view of, some scientific idea.
Right.
But there's one that's going on right now in astronomy and astrophysics. There was an object that came zipping through the solar system about a year ago. And it's called, they named it Oumuamua. Oumuamua is how it's pronounced. And anyway, they've determined that this is has an icy core and covered with rock. Now, this configuration of an asteroid or some object in outer space is absolutely impossible, because in outer space, with no vapor pressure at all, anything that's liquid or even warm temperature ice would not exist anymore. And to imagine that somehow rock, which was molten, somehow covered this piece of ice, like painting the railing on your deck,
Right.
is just so beyond absurd. This is, what I was talking about, the improbable science that comes out, and this is published in space.com, supposedly an authority on, and then this is also being published in so-called respectable peer-reviewed journals. So just another indication that science is just completely out to lunch when it comes to, anything astronomy.
Well, we know, at least you know, Jim, there are scientists at a certain level that know within these agencies, such as NASA, that this is a fantasy, a fiction. Why do they promote and go along with these things?
Well, their job depends on it. They would no longer have a house payment, and the wife wouldn't be happy, and the kids wouldn't be going to college anymore, and they wouldn't be getting their retirement, and so they could go golf when they get done with this nonsense. So
okay.
that's the reason.
Well, that's the reason they do, but there has to be an underlying reason above and beyond that, I would think, for doing it in the first place.
Well, yeah. It's just to bombard the public with nonsensical, ludicrous. It's not even science; it's just fairy tales. So it doesn't even stand up to the Grimm brothers standards. It's just lunacy. But it gets passed off, gets put in textbooks, and they have to keep the story consistent. But that's been the point all along of science. Once you get into astronomy, after your first 3 years of college, then you go into, if you study meteorology or astronomy or astrophysics, or I could list many more, geology, planetary science, it goes into Never Never Land, never comes back.
Got an update on that incident at Fort Meade. They're now reporting 3 people shot and wounded.
Ooh.
So the story is getting more complex here, it looks like. Hopefully we'll get more details later.
It's gone from Looney Tune into a movement. But if there's one, it's crazy. If it's 2, it's, coincidence. If it's 3, it's a movement.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully we'll get details maybe before the show's over here in the next hour or so, hour and a half. Okay. Any updates on the Nazca line, sir?
No, I don't. I've been buried with this wing stuff since for a long time. It really picked up kind of about midsummer, and then on my journey, I happened to be in the hurricanes in Florida, and had to escape with my life. And so since then, basically, I've been knee deep in this, hip deep in this, completing this wing project. And all the information is not public yet. But there were a lot of reasons why this was taking place. But things like the Nazca lines and other projects were put on back burners. So now I have to get back to those things.
Well, good. We're all anxiously waiting to see the results of your future work on that, Jim. I don't think you and I have talked about this, but there's a new imaging technology that allows the scientists to see through the thick jungle and observe the human-built structures. And apparently they found thousands of them down there in Mexico in the jungle that previously were unknown. Many thousands. Yeah,
that's interesting. Well, they had to be there given the population, that was there.
Right.
And of course, with the growth in that whole region, it's when Catherwood went down and discovered those. It was back in the 1800s, I believe, and did the artwork. That's something that people should do. Go to your library, or you can see these online. But there's nothing like holding these in your hand, the big Catherwood drawings of the Mayan runes. But the they were completely overgrown with trees growing out of them, and there was a lot of reconstruction done to get to where they are today, especially the Mayans down in the jungle. So that's interesting that they can see. There's probably a heat signature type of technology, remote viewing, to see those the heat signatures of the rocks that would be just under the vegetation. But that also requires a lot of money and manpower. I've been at archaeological digs, and it's painstakingly slow. It
has to be, so they don't just damage and destroy anything or miss something.
Right. But in the jungle, it's 10 times worse because you're dealing with, ripping off all this plant structure and then dirt, and then down to the final. I was at one outside of Mexico City one time, and just laying there were these big rock masks that they use for celebrations and stuff, and completely covered with dirt sediment.
Right.
So, from the day they were left there, who knows how many hundreds or thousands of years ago.
Right. And these masks were made out of what material?
Rock. They were carved, intricately carved and painted rock masks that they would use for ceremonies. And, they were heavy. They were big. And these people, the Mayans, were small. Some of them were, this was in Aztec territory, but still smaller people, a lot smaller than you and me.
Right. Well, it sounds like it would not be fun to wear a mask made out of stone, Jim.
Well, yeah, the fun was probably not high on the list
of
those people. They had some serious, strange culture and customs. Let's just put it that way.
Right. Amazing, absolutely amazing. Okay. Your pursuits of archaeology have been fascinating to follow when some of it becomes public. And are you going to be writing any books about what your findings have been?
I have, kind of a whole laundry list of other books that are sitting on the shelf, and one that's almost done, which I never announce my topics or whatever, but that got put on hold basically last August. I was very near completion, and I just ran out of time when I had to leave in pursuit of this wing generator project and some other things at the same time. So that one I'm very anxious to get back to and complete and get it out there, because it's amazing. It's amazing stuff. Brand new. So anyway, there's definitely more to come.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll look forward to those. I want to encourage people to go to Jim's website and buy all his books. Every one of them is very worthwhile, interesting reading, and the format makes them fit real nice on the shelf, all using the same size and so forth, so they fit nice on the bookshelf, don't they, Jim?
It's kind of a little library, and I unfortunately stopped printing some of the books, so some of the more recent books are only available in e-format, but all of the books are available in e-format, except for Calculate Primes. That was just kind of difficult to put into e-format, but last year I did manage to convert that, and there again I hadn't gotten that ready for final release in an e-format. But anyway, the webpage is there at the bottom. The blue table has all of the books, etc.
Outstanding. Well, Jim, any prognostication on where the Department of Justice is going to go in terms of really looking into the collusion between the Democrats and the Russians?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's quite a bit going on in the background. And the word I have, too, is that there's a lot going on in terms of the pedophilia, the human trafficking, and things like that. So that is going on in the background. But as far as the Clintons and all of that, I don't know. I would think that would be a done deal, because we knew about that a long time ago. That
Right.
was, I mean, now that these documents are coming out, we actually knew about this. So I don't know what the holdup is. That's, I guess, my comment.
Well, they need to get all their ducks in a row, make sure they do it right the first time. We had a caller on hold here. We had Paul in New Jersey. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'd like to make a comment concerning why people are disinterested in NASA and space exploration. And then I have a quick question, too, though, for Professor McKenney. I assume he believes we landed on the moon?
What?
Is that
I have an official statement on that on my webpage. We could talk a lot about that, but my official statement is that it is an unproven scientific claim. Science requires independent third-party corroboration and verification, and that's standard in science, that if I came out and made some claim, or if NASA does, or anybody, Pons and Fleischmann for cold fusion, then they have to explain what they did, and it has to be verified by second and third independent parties. And the more independent parties that verify it, the better it is. This has never been done with the moon landings. So that's where it stands. They're unverified scientific claims. That's the scientific...
I've heard that for one, Michael Rivero has said that they have pretty much established when they landed on the moon, they put a reflector on there, and that scientists today use that reflector. And also, the Russians have...
you could put that on with a satellite. That'd be easy to do with an unmanned satellite.
Right, but also, I remember a few years ago the Russians having put a lander on the moon and basically roamed around our old landing sites. So I believe we landed on the moon. But, nonetheless,
the Russians did not do that, I guarantee you. I know Russian scientists. I know the Russian space program. I don't know where you heard that, but that is complete baloney.
It was in the news several years ago. But I'll have to try to research it.
If you believe the news, then you believe in the news. That's your deal.
Okay.
Anyway, go ahead.
But my point is to make space more interesting. I think they need to junk it up for human beings. Because let's be honest, people are more interested in shows like The Bachelor. So maybe we should set up a romance between astronauts to get the typical American viewer interested in space travel, right? Yeah. And I also think sending dogs in cute outfits into the space station would also get people more interested in the space station.
Or even a hamster with a name, so little kids would be like, "Oh, let's watch what Ralphie is doing today," you know?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Something, but they need PR people that are real. They could, if you can sell Coca-Cola, which rots your stomach, and everybody buys it, it's just PR. And NASA has never been very good.
They need to do more of that. And most men would love to see sexy ladies as astronauts, right, up there in zero gravity.
Thank you, Paul. We got
All
a
right,
couple
gentlemen.
calls and we're almost out of time this hour. We'll be back after the break. Get these last two callers in. Wednesday, the 14th of February. Got a couple of calls on hold here. First, we go to Mark in Oregon. Good morning, Mark.
Morning. I wanted to ask Professor McCanney what he thought about ozone machines. I knew some people years ago that had one, and also I was going to Portland, Oregon one time at the top of the hour on ABC News. I couldn't believe my ears. They said some people in Idaho had been arrested for making ozone machines. But is it illegal? And what I just wondered if Professor McCanney could talk about all the health benefits from ozone machines.
Actually, I'm not a medical doctor, so.
Oh, right, I know.
And so it's in this country, it's illegal to say anything that might spur people on to do something. And so the benefits of ozone, one would have to do medical studies and, to legally be able to comment.
You could walk in their house. You could walk in their house and smell ozone, sit down and put this tube in your ear, and visit for a while, and supposedly it is cure about anything, I guess. But anyway, I just thought I'd ask you. Been wondering about that, and thank you.
Okay, thanks for the call, Mark.
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Gotcha.
Loaded with a prison sentence. So, anyway.
Our last call this hour will be Dan in Missouri. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning, gentlemen. Professor, since there seems like to be no other path for information on Fukushima, would you please bring us up to date on it to the best of your knowledge, and what's going to happen if we continue to do nothing?
Well, the core has gone China syndrome, so they don't even know where it is. The active radioactive material is still active, and they're dumping tremendous amounts of water on it to try and keep it cool from going, literally getting worse. And so all that water, there's no way to contain it. It's a disaster. It's an ecological disaster. Every day it gets worse and more incurable. You could put neutron acceptors down into it and try and calm it down, and that would be a possibility. That's what has to be done to actually contain it. But that's going to take years, if not decades, even if it's even possible at all at this point. And then just slow the reaction down to where you could actually get near it to try and contain it. But it's already China syndrome. They don't even know where it is.
Would you eat any fish out of the Pacific Ocean?
I have eaten seafood from the Pacific Ocean. But I know that the whale counts are way down in the Pacific Ocean. That's one statistic I can give you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
For the call. Jim, thank you, sir. Look forward to having you back next week.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. Top of the hour break. We'll be back with Jeff Nyquist. Stay tuned. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 14th day of February. Prep tip of the day, I want to encourage you to have all the members of your team, whatever that might be, to have mechanical wristwatches. Mechanical wristwatches will not be subject to EMP damage. They will be durable. You get a good quality one that'll last for decades. I've got several to pick from there at my website under John's Survival and Tactical Gear. Breaking news, we've got continuing reports from Fort Meade, Maryland, near Baltimore. A black SUV attempted to gain entrance without authority. It crashed to a concrete barrier. 3 people have been taken into custody, 1 taken to the hospital. There's some disagreement about how many people were shot. One report says 3 shot, one says 1 shot, and that the president has been briefed. Okay, we were hoping that Jeff Nyquist would call in. Apparently he has not called in, and if he does, we'll certainly take Jeff's call. In the meantime, we'll have open lines here at Republic Broadcasting. It was 50 years ago this month that we were still in the Tet Offensive in the Republic of Vietnam. I was still in the Tet Offensive in the Republic of Vietnam. I just wrote a letter to the editor of my old local newspaper, written by a Vietnam vet who was in Vietnam during the Tet Offensive, encouraging people to remember what happened, and he was remembering his friends that he lost. I lost friends in the Tet Offensive as well. I was reading an article in one of my firearms publications about the advantage of using semi-automatic firearms as opposed to full automatic, and I recalled how during the Tet Offensive I was laying on my belly, and we were waiting for the ground attack. Typically what happens is once the rockets and mortars cease falling on us, then the ground attack would begin. So we're laying on our belly, anticipating the ground attack, and these young lieutenants, we had a couple of young lieutenants who hadn't been in country very long. They were going from man to man, encouraging us to make sure we were all on. I had our M14s on semi-auto. After about the fifth or sixth time, it was starting to get a little old, quite frankly, but these guys were kind of excited and nervous, and I knew that they were excited and nervous, and I just said, yes, sir, it's on semi-auto. Yes, sir, it's on semi-auto. Yes, sir, it is on semi-auto. And that was that. The Tet Offensive, Tet is the Chinese New Year celebration. It takes place in Vietnam, celebration of Chinese New Year. It's a combination of Christmas, 4th of July, and New Year's all rolled into one. Quite an amazing event. There was officially a ceasefire taking place, beginning the day of the beginning of the Tet celebration, and it started out as a joyful time for people. They were happy. They were cooking special meals, exchanging gifts, playing music, and it started out that first night as a very joyful event. People went to bed, and then we including myself and my buddies, about 2 a.m., we all were woken to initially what we thought were fireworks, which turned out to be incoming mortars, incoming rockets exploding, and that was the beginning. The 14th of February, we would have been into the second week of the offensive, and by then it was clear that we were going to win. By then, the first 3 days, in my opinion, it wasn't all that clear that we were going to win. They hit us hard, in all our major areas, all our major headquarters, provincial capitals, including Saigon, Da Nang, and Hue, the old place where the rulers of Vietnam had been for centuries, the Citadel, for example. It was not clear those first 3 days, but it took about 3 days for the Army, Marines, Air Force, Navy to gather our forces and go on the counterattack, and we kicked some serious Viet Cong and NVA butt. But it was a psychological propaganda loss because for us, for the West, because our highest officials, including General Westmoreland and President Johnson, were telling everybody that we were winning the war, that the Viet Cong could no longer mount a credible offense on the battlefield, which by the end of the first day it was very clear they could mount a major offensive. There was a lot of disagreement at the highest levels of intelligence. I was at the lowest level of intelligence, but I did get to observe and be aware of both sides of the argument, thank goodness. I was aware of the Army side, Army intelligence, their belief what was going on, as well as the CIA. I was in CIA headquarters there in Canton, 5 days a week, picking up classified documents from the CIA. I got to know those people a little bit, not that much. The CIA was convinced that the Viet Cong could still mount a credible offensive and be a true threat to us, that the war was not over. Army intelligence was saying just the opposite, that the Viet Cong were essentially defeated, could no longer mount a credible offensive on the battlefield. Of course, as it turned out, the CIA was right and the Army was wrong. That's what turned out. And we paid a big price for that because we weren't ready. Why would the Army get ready to meet a major offensive from an enemy that's nearly defeated? Why would you do such a thing? Well, obviously they didn't. And we paid a big price in that in terms of American lives, in terms of our the way we were looked at by the Americans at home and by the world, holding out these beliefs that were absolutely not true. It made us look like fools. It did. It did. It was absolutely a propaganda defeat for us, a public relations defeat for us, the Tet Offensive, even though it was a military victory. The Army, of course, did everything they could to conceal the true numbers. They would, if we lost 200 or 300 guys in one big battle, they would spread out the reporting of that over a number of days, even weeks, to make it look like the numbers were actually smaller. If a man was wounded on the battlefield and he was evacuated to the hospital in Japan where we took our really serious injuries and he died there, he was not counted as killed in action. They counted it as as a death, not as a result of combat. That's some of the games they were playing to conceal from the American public what was really going on. I don't doubt they're still doing that. I don't doubt that at all. These continuous wars for no good reason. This never-ending war in Afghanistan, and we're there because about 100 or so Saudi Arabians were there in 2001, and we demanded that the government turn them over to us. They refused, and we went to war for an entire country 17 years ago because the equivalent of two school bus loads of terrorists from Saudi Arabia would not be given up by that government. That doesn't sound like a very good reason to go to war to me. Not at all. Not at all. But we did. And we all saw the images of the sophisticated concrete bunkers that bin Laden was supposed to be hiding in the mountains. Built by the CIA, by the way, when we were fighting the Russians. It turns out that he was actually in Pakistan, not even in the country that we were going to war against, being protected by ISI, the Pakistani intelligence service, ISI, living the equivalent of about 2 football fields distance from the front gate of the Pakistani equivalent of West Point, in a very nice villa, not in some cave in the mountains of Afghanistan. What was it, bin Laden? 6'6", 6'7", a really tall guy. I mean, if he's around, you're going to know it. That was Osama bin Laden. The circumstances of his death are very unusual, to say the least. And I believe almost all the men who were participated in that operation are now deceased in a helicopter crash, which is also very suspicious, quite frankly. But Pat Tillman, the former NFL football player who became an Army Ranger, he thought it was the right thing to do, the patriotic thing to do, walk away from his very financially lucrative professional football career, become an Army Ranger. He found out about the U.S. Army protecting the poppy fields in Afghanistan, and he was outraged, as well he should have been. being Pat Tillman as opposed to just another sergeant from Nebraska or a private from Texas, being a former NFL player, if he called a press conference, people are going to show up. And he was going to go public with what he knew about the American military protecting the poppy fields in Afghanistan, which, of course, they were then and they still are. And he was murdered. When the Army found out about that, he was murdered. It looks like we have patient waiting agreement, my friend Jeff Nyquist. Jeff is a gentleman who's taken the time, made the effort for way more than 20 years to connect the dots, understand the true nature of international communism, Marxism, and the threat that it poses to the West and our way of life. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, John.
All right. Good to have you with us, sir. It sounds like your audio might be a little bit hollow there. You're not using a speakerphone by any chance, are you?
What? Say that again?
I say again, you're not using a speakerphone, sir?
No, I'm not using a speakerphone.
Okay, good. That's it's cleared up, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, we have, I think you've been prognosticating for quite a while that the true collusion with Russia was all along the Democrats before it became public knowledge. With the Senate memorandum a week ago Monday is the opening salvo, I believe, of getting to the truth, that the true Russian collusion was between Hillary Clinton's people, the Democratic National Committee, and the Russians, not between Donald Trump and the Russians, correct?
Yes, that's right. The disturbing thing about the intelligence testimony before the Senate yesterday, we had the heads of the intelligence agencies before the Senate Intelligence Committee, was their affirmation that the Russians interfered with the elections. And of course, they're referring to the hacking of the Democratic, Hillary Clinton campaign emails, John Podesta's emails, Hillary Clinton's emails, and then the publication of those emails through WikiLeaks that was very damaging to Clinton because, of course, she said bad things about Catholics, she said bad things about America, things that reflected badly on herself. And then there were the very strange emails from John Podesta connecting him to that Baphomet worshiper, Abramovich woman. Very strange. She does the spirit cooking thing. So that, I think all that hurt Hillary Clinton. And so they want to say that this lost them the election, which it may have done. Maybe not. Maybe it did. But for the intelligence chiefs to say the Russians did the hack is very extraordinary to me, because I've talked to intelligence experts, and they're not so sure that the Russians did this. And you have the death of Seth Rich, who was murdered not long after that, and that the head of WikiLeaks himself, Julian Assange, suggested that these emails weren't hacked by the Russians, but they were taken by Seth Rich, who worked there with Podesta and the others, and that had stolen them, had made copies of these emails, and had given them to WikiLeaks. So, but I know why the intelligence community thinks so, because the Russians are trying to make them think that the Russians hacked it. And we can see that in the fact that a Russian hacker in a Russian court here last summer confessed to doing the hack. And the Russians have arrested the KGB general, I should call him an FSB general, who supposedly ordered him to do the hack. And now, I really hope our intelligence officials aren't going by this confession in Russia, because there's no way intelligence operations could be revealed in a Russian court, because Russian courts aren't independent, and no Russian judge would ever allow that to come out in his court unless he was told for it to. And this jailbird in Russia who was arrested on another charge is going to confess to something he did in the USA out of the blue? No. he was put up to it. So,
put up to it as in threatened to do it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. They threaten it. Yeah.
Right.
So the thing is that what the intelligence chiefs should do is they should be asking, why did this kid in Russia admit to this? And why would the Russians allow him to admit to it in public unless they want us to think that they hacked it? And why would they want... Now look at the timeline. Those emails were probably stolen before June 9th. Now what happened of 2016? On June 9th was when the Russians got Donald Trump Jr. and Jared Kushner and Paul Manafort to meet in Trump Tower to say they had dirt on Hillary Clinton.
Right.
So I think the Russians knew that their buddies in the Democratic Party had a leak, and I think they wanted to set this whole thing up that we got, this whole Russiagate scandal.
I'm sure they did. Hold that thought, Jeff. We got a break. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. Wednesday, the 14th of February. Apologize to our listeners. The first 40 minutes of the first hour, nobody could call in. If you attempted to, the 800 number was not working. It's back in service now. So you can call us at 800-313-9443. Being with Jeff Nyquist. Jeff, give us your website, if you would, please, sir.
Yeah, it's JRNYQIST.com.
Okay, and that's linked on my link page at thelibertyman.com.
Yeah.
Jeff, would it be an accurate statement to say that your belief is the Russians want the American public to believe that they were helping Trump in order to discredit Trump? Would that be a fair statement?
I think we have proof of it, yes.
Okay. All right. When actually behind the scenes, they were actually, the real help was going to Hillary Clinton and the Democratic National Committee. So publicly, the Russians are making admissions against interest that they were attempting to help Donald Trump, when the reality is, behind the scenes, and the evidence shows that they were actually helping Hillary Clinton and the Democratic National Committee, because Hillary was their girl, wasn't she?
Yes, so, yeah, there's a long history there. Absolutely. Yep. That's right. Okay.
Well, people need to understand this, and you've held these beliefs for quite a while. I've held these beliefs for quite a while. Now, in the last 10 days or so, we now finally have evidence, don't we?
Yes, and, well, when you go to this Russian business, with the Russians making these statements having a Russian make these statements in court. This is a giveaway because Russian courts aren't independent. Nothing like that, like a revelation of an intelligence operation, can happen in a Russian court. So what's going on? The Russians want the Americans to believe that they hacked their election. That's an extraordinary revelation in and of itself, an extraordinary revelation.
It is. It is, and
Yeah.
it's by design. It's by design.
Yeah.
Nothing at that level is left to chance, is it?
Well, no. I mean, that's strategy. That's a kind of strategy at work. And so you have to ask yourself, what are they doing? Why do they want this? So this attack on President Trump, in which he's claimed to collude with the Russians, has the earmarks of a Russian operation against Trump. So which is it? How could they be trying to reveal themselves what they're doing and expose themselves when, in fact, they're the ones being accused? They're supposedly co-conspirators. You would think that they'd want to hide their tracks.
You would think so.
Yeah,
you would definitely think so. And, yeah, they would use the full resources of Mother Russia to conceal this activity. The fact that it's coming out when Americans think of a court, they think of American courts. Russian courts and American courts have no relevance one to the other, do they?
No, they don't. I mean, Russian judges are basically cower before the authority of the central government and the police, especially. For them to have allowed a prisoner to reveal that he committed a crime against the United States, for example, in a court that was part of an intelligence operation ordered by an FSB general, and there's a problem with that too, is inconceivable. And an FSB general, by the way, what is an FSB general who's the same as sort of an FBI? That's their FBI.
Right.
Why is he committing an act of espionage in the United States when that is the purview of the SVR, which is their CIA?
Good question. Good question.
See, that detail doesn't make sense. Yeah, there's a detail. See, they concoct these stories. We buy them, and we don't properly examine whether they make sense.
Absolutely.
And that's what bothered me about yesterday's. You know, I listened to those guys talking about the threats to the country. And you've got members of Congress who are being blackmailed right now by Chinese and Russian agents, and not a word about it. Nothing. You've got no investigations going on in Congress, of Congress, by the FBI, by anyone else. They're investigating the president and the president's family because his boys had no political experience. They didn't know what they were doing. They met with a Russian lawyer without their own lawyers. It was a big mistake. They made a big mistake, and that could get President Trump impeached. It could.
Well, I don't believe that it's going to go that far myself. Making a mistake when there was no harm done, other than the political fallout from that. We've got a bottom of the hour break. We'll be back. Call numbers 800-313-9443.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We're continuing our energy cleaner promotion, which began August of 2016. In this promotion, you get to buy an energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and a mattress pad, 10% off retail. $200 of the purchase price of the energy cleaner goes to Republic Broadcasting. This is a great way to help get energy cleaners out to people who need them and have some financial issues to deal with. And, of course, a great way to support Republic Broadcasting. Here's what you do. Send in a postcard. My address is John Moore, P.O. Box 201, Davidsville, Missouri. We pick a postcard every 2 weeks. If your postcard is drawn, you get the chance to buy the energy cleaner, $70 off retail, and 10% off the mattress pads. Put your name and your address, your telephone number, and your email address on the postcard, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you. All right, we are back. We are working on it. And we are back. Yes, we're back. Okay. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. You'll find interesting free downloads there, such as the book titled The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy, a book that could change your life. The copyright's long expired, published more than half a century ago. So check it out. It's a great book. I buy several copies here to give to people I think can make good use of it. Also, my website, of course, are energy cleaners. This is my home business. When you place your order, you get yourself an energy cleaner that I pack up personally. I take it to the country post office at Cherryville, Missouri, where you can get a all-you-can-eat catfish buffet on Friday evening for $8, including side dishes and beverage. And I ship it out priority mail. Mattress pads the same way. If you got arthritis pain, back pain, joint pain, get yourself an energy cleaner. Not sleeping, hey, you need yourself an energy cleaner. I use mine every night. It's great. I wouldn't go anywhere without it. In fact, when I travel, I have the handy travel-size pad on my seat of my Lincoln Town Car when I make those long trips, like when I'm going to Dallas. In March, I'll have the energy cleaner pad on that seat of that automobile. Only $285 shipping included for the energy cleaner. I have a 90-day money-back guarantee, so you're risking nothing. Check out the factory-made fitted mattress pads. Keep in mind, I take PayPal, the most secure way to make payments online, MasterCard, Visa. Yeah, you can send me a check if you need to. And I have a toll-free order line. Here it is, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Visiting with Jeff Nyquist, his website's linked to my links page at thelibertyman.com. And we're talking about the real Russian collusion, not the make-believe Russian collusion the Democrats would want us to believe. Jeff, it appears to me that the foundation upon which the special counsel was appointed is sand. There's nothing there. The beginning premise is fabricated, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it now became clear to me, though, that the Russians knew what they were doing. This supposed hack of the Democratic Party, of course, this is the party that the Russians and the communists have infiltrated to try to disarm the United States. If you look at the policies of Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, and the proposed policies of Hillary Clinton, they involved crucial steps of nuclear disarmament. Hillary Clinton in the campaign promised that she was going to kill the reliable warhead program, that is the program to build us new nuclear weapons, which we desperately needed. She publicly stated, I heard her in a speech say she was going to kill it. This is something that the Russians really want. Barack Obama was always talking about nuclear disarmament, even unilateral nuclear disarmament. Let's set an example and get rid of all our nukes. Well, that would be the end of America with the Chinese and the Russian nukes out there. There'd be no doubt that would be the end of America. So who is the Democratic Party that's doing this? It's not a party of patriots. It's a party of people working for a communist future, working in tandem with the Red Chinese and the Russians, who have never given up communism. And so when you look at this hacking of the Democratic Party, supposedly by the Russians, GPS Fusion, that had control of their intelligence of the Democratic Party, had control of these computers. You know, the FBI never saw the hard drives of these supposedly hacked computers. Never saw him. They never turned him over to the FBI. Yeah, the FBI has no hard evidence that a hack of any kind took place. It's just GPS fusion claims it took place. The Democratic Party claims it. Hillary Clinton claims it. And then Seth Rich, one of their employees, is murdered.
Right. Well,
a guy who worked for the DNC. Yeah.
I'd like to see a real investigation of his murder, which I'm not aware of a real one being done so far. Are you?
No. And so you see, the timing of this. The emails were stolen before the 9th of June, and you have this sudden this meeting at the Trump Tower between the Russians, this Russian lawyer, and the Donald Trump Jr. and Jared Kushner and Paul Manafort. Paul Manafort, who is probably himself a Russian agent, and he might have been the one that suggested it, that got it going. And so then later on, a few days later, the Democrats claimed that they were hacked. So you see, what they're going to do is they're going to say there's a relationship between this meeting and the hack, and that somehow the Trump campaign agreed to get the Russians to do the hack for them, to release the information to help them win the election. That's what the claim is going to be. That's what the Mueller investigation is going to try and show. See? That's what it's about.
You can't show something that doesn't exist, Jeff.
Well, you see, they got the Russians to produce the evidence.
Right.
And that's what we're not counting on. They got the Russians can come up with and fake evidence in support of this, and these people here, not knowing how the Russians operate, will believe it.
Well, we shall see. We shall see. The evidence right now is certainly going in favor of Mr. Now, this I want to back up a bit here. This Russian plane crash that took place earlier this week, there were two potential witnesses in there that could have caused great damage to the Democrats, and they were among the people that died. Everybody died on an aircraft in a crash when it left Moscow earlier this week. I think that's another piece of the puzzle. How about you, sir?
Interesting. I'm interested to hear your theory. Who was on the plane?
One was, they were both Russian nationals. One was a witness to the potential witness to the Uranium One deal, and the other was a potential witness. The other was a potential witness, I believe, connected to the whole Russian collusion thing. I'm not. I haven't looked at that for a couple of days, but I believe that was the connection for the other one. Regardless, we've seen this happen in the past where they'll, like for example, the Mr. Brown, who was on an airplane that crashed in Europe during the was it the Obama administration, or early in the Obama administration?
It was the Clinton administration, and Brown was secretary. Okay. Yeah, Brown was Secretary of Commerce, and it was at Dubrovnik, Yugoslavia, and the plane slammed into a mountain.
Right. It turned out the automated systems that the planes use to navigate, one of them had been moved to direct that plane right into the side of the mountain.
Yes.
Right.
That's right.
So we've seen this happen before. The Korean airliner that was brought down, it had a member of Congress that was exposing the communists. And so crashing, if you're on a plane with somebody who could cause harm to the communists, it may not be a very healthy decision.
No, they will down a plane, because what's interesting, if you have a plane crash, it's an aviation accident, and you don't have a murder investigation. You have an aviation investigation, yeah. Yeah, the same thing happened when the Polish president's plane went down a few years ago on a flight to Smolensk in Russia. And there were a lot of the leading anti-communists in Poland were on that plane. They killed a lot of people that day. Right.
Well, Poland's always been a prize for the Russians that they've been after to control it, and they came close to losing it. I don't know what the status of Poland is now. I know they're not letting the Muslims in, which is very smart. There's a strong anti-communist fervor in Poland after having been under the boot of communism for decades upon decades. But the Russians will do that. They will murder people. They will murder a whole plane load of people just to get one person. And that's just how they operate, isn't it, Jeff?
Yeah, that is it. Yeah, it's murder is one of their major methods, and the other method is, of course, the lie, the big lie. So they tell a big lie, and the big lie is all these people who were on the left, who were communists, who colluded with communism, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and their friends, that they are suddenly anti-Russians when they have been working with the Russians their whole lives long and were mentored, like Barack Obama, by Frank Marshall Davis, who was probably a KGB agent. His FBI file speculates that he was. He was a Communist Party USA member. In those days, the Communist Party USA was a Moscow pledge to loyalty to Moscow. So, who is Barack Obama? You cannot believe what they say is their motivation. They're not motivated by patriotism. They're not motivated by concern for the security of the country. They are the people that want to take our nuclear weapons away. And supposedly Mr. Trump, who's building nuclear weapons, is the Russia's guy. It's absurd.
Right. It is. It is absurd. And we need to get this message out every week, and we will continue to get this message out every week so we can inform as many people as possible of the truth about what's going on. I hope that Donald Trump has as many layers of protection as he needs. I want to see that expanded to his family, his son's home. There was a letter there with white powder in it that his wife opened yesterday. She ended up in the hospital for precautionary reasons. I would like to see Secret Service or private security put in place for the entire Trump family. I think that needs to happen, don't you, sir?
Yes. Well, I believe Mr. Trump does have his own private security on top of the Secret Service. Of course, the great problem is that in a town like Washington, you don't know who your friends or your enemies are because the Russians are everywhere. The Russian embassy is a center of a conspiracy right there in Washington, D.C.
Yep, and it's a den of spies is what it is. And, like I said a moment ago, the entire Trump family needs a better protection than what they're getting. Unfortunately, when you're that big a target, you just can't open your own mail someplace. The mail goes someplace else. All the White House mail never gets within a mile of the White House. It's opened at a remote place under very specific safety precautions, so that no harm can come to the president. And that has to happen with his entire family.
Yeah, people don't realize this President Donald Trump, has had more death threats than any other human being in the history of the United States, maybe in the history of the world. He has had a phenomenal number of death threats, and it can't be, easy for him or his family to endure this. They're doing something that very few people would be willing to put themselves through, just to be involved in turning this country around and changing the situation.
Well, God bless Donald Trump, and I've known a few men and one or two women that work for the Secret Service. They're all patriotic Americans that want to do the right thing for the right reasons. They're prepared to get between the assassin and the president to protect his life, and God bless him. And you're right. Donald Trump has maintained his private security in addition to the Secret Service, which I'm not aware there's any precedents for that. Are you?
No, not while there was a Secret Service. I think that some presidents did have private security. I know Abraham Lincoln used the Pinkerton guys, but that was before there was a regular Secret Service. I think it is unprecedented. And of course, but again, this president has received more death threats than anybody. And the left, let's be honest, the left has become more violent since the election. The Antifa, who are communist, they're like a communist terrorist group. Look at the violence that happened at Berkeley, where they set upon a group of conservatives who were meeting, and they attacked them with weapons when the conservatives weren't armed. They closed down the Rose Parade last year in Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon every year has a very famous Rose Parade, and the Antifa communists threatened to assail it because there were Republicans were going to be marching in the parade, if you can imagine. So they just didn't have the parade. I mean, an event that had happened for decades in this city up in Oregon, the largest city in Oregon, they stopped their event because the communists forced them to. What's going on in this country? The communists are threatening violence against parades and against meetings of conservative young people and breaking them up and hurting people and scaring people. We have de facto communist terrorism in this country, changing what people in cities and towns and so on do. And what is the FBI? Did they ask the FBI a question about that yesterday? Say, what are you doing to combat Antifa? What are you doing to combat communist leftist violence in our streets?
Well,
not a word.
Yeah, we got a break coming up here soon. Let's go to Dave in Texas. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Good morning, guys. Thank you very much for being on, Mr. Nyquist. Thanks for having me on, John. This is crucial information. People do not realize what is going on with the Communist Party. They've kind of gone underground. If you have not known that Valerie Jarrett's father was a A-list Communist Party member, he was. I guess he's on the FBI collect list. He was one of the top guys to be collected if anything broke out between us and the Soviets back at the time. So was Obama's wife's father, Michelle Obama. Her father was on the FBI A list to be collected. He's a Communist Party member. So their kids go underground, not to be in-your-face communists, but they are. They are communists, and this is a communist situation. People don't realize how tenuous it can get.
That's absolutely right.
All right.
Yeah.
Dave, thank you for your call. We got our break. We'll be back and wrap this up. Stay tuned, everybody. We are back on Wednesday, the 14th of February. Jeff, I don't know if I ever told you, but I had a conversation with an FBI agent that I've known for a while. This has been, 15, 16 years ago, and he told me that their mission statement no longer includes keeping track of communists. They no longer do that. And I was shocked and surprised and disappointed. But I hope that changes. I would hope that the mission statement of the FBI would change to include monitoring the activities of communists, don't you?
Yes, I do. You know, I watched the intelligence hearing yesterday, the part that was, of course, public. They had an in-camera session. I hope the in-camera session showed that they were more, on to what's going on. But I think our intelligence community, they're fine people. They do amazing work. But they have, like our whole culture, has been drawn into this thing that being on the left has been accepted that communism, you got a Marxist who can now be, in the FBI, in the CIA, in these agencies, and now I don't think they understand that these people that they regard as colleagues, these people that we elected as president, these people that are being placed into positions, sensitive positions, that 60 years ago they would have been regarded as traitors for the views that they, even some of them, express openly. The fact that the head of the CIA publicly admitted that he voted for Gus Hall in 1980, and he even told that to the CIA, and they hired him anyway. That in the 80s, that's incomprehensible to me.
It is. It is. Everything's upside down, backwards. But I do see glimmers of hope with the Trump administration. If he can continue on his current path, I believe we're going to see some dramatic changes here, Jeff, don't you?
Well, yeah, that's why they're fighting against Trump so hard, is that they expected Hillary Clinton to be in there. Hillary would have formed a shield behind which they could have transformed our intelligence community, our FBI, our Justice Department even more. I mean, imagine the Justice Department was controlled by people who would not prosecute certain drug criminals who were connected to supporting communism. They would not go after spies. Look, we caught those spies back in, what was it, 2010, and Obama just sent them back to Putin. There was no incarceration. These were spies without diplomatic cover. These were people who, had we been doing it in Russia, would have been put in a basement, interrogated, tortured, and then shot afterwards. That. Right. That's the thing. And he just sends them back to Putin, and they have a little party, with Putin. Incredible.
I know. Obama had 8 years, and then we need to include both Bushes and Clinton also. 4 presidents who were engaged in this activity. That there's a lot of house cleaning to do, isn't there?
Yep.
Absolutely. Jeff, we're out of time. Look forward to having you back next week, sir.
Thank you, John.
Appreciate it. Okay. That's it for the day. Get your medical supplies, your energy cleaner, your essential oils now while you can, your firearms and ammunition. Never ever give up your guns. Please do have a fun, safe, productive day. And God bless America.